Hey everyone, Rob from Southgate Media Group here. Before we get started with this podcast, we have a quick message. If this is your first time checking out the show, we love that you found us and we really hope you enjoy it. What we have to say is for the subscribers. If you enjoy our shows, would you please donate to help keep these going? We don't want to have to put traditional ads on these shows, but this does cost money. So we really do rely heavily on donations. To make a donation to the show, please go to our website, www.southgatemediagroup.com. Go to the page for the show, and in the upper right-hand corner is a donate button. It takes you right to PayPal, and you can donate whatever amount you want. Thanks a lot for listening, everybody. And now on with the show.
Hello and welcome back to the ShowRatings.tv Pilot Roundtable, a Southgate Media Group podcast. I'm Kyle Tremblay, the editor-in-chief at ShowRatings.tv, and I am joined, as always, by a staff writer and member of the social media team, Olivia Richards. Olivia, hello.
Hey.
So we got one pilot this week, and it's a pilot that fans of television or people with a base level of awareness of pop culture will recognize. The Odd Couple, which premiered Thursday on CBS and is a remake of the classic sitcom and play of the same name. What did you think of this one, Olivia?
I couldn't get past the laugh track. It hurt me. It was just, I wasn't a fan, and that's really sad because I love the film version. I love the Walter Matthau, Jack Lemmon.
Sure.
The way that they were playing off these characters, and I love the characters, and the concept is great. I just don't think it translated to this modern remake.
Yeah, so do you have an issue with laugh tracks in general? Because, like, The Big Bang Theory has a laugh track, or just specifically used here?
Honestly, it kind of depends on how it's used. I think for me personally, like, this one didn't work because the jokes weren't funny for me, so it made it that much worse when the laugh track would go over it, and I was like, nothing is funny, right? Like, nothing's happening. But yeah, it just seemed extremely, like, gratuitous and just so over the top.
Yeah, I think the root of the problem is the jokes weren't funny. I think when you're a situation comedy and the comedy part isn't really coming through for you, it's gonna be rough regardless. Like it's I just think, as always, it's a comedy pilot, so most comedy pilots aren't very good, but it's just hard to have a half hour of comedy where just nothing is funny. Like, that's really tough. That's, even for a pilot, even grading on a curve and understanding that comedies generally get better. It reminded me of Mulaney in that regard.
Oh yeah.
It's a multicam where the studio audience is laughing, and you're just like, why? Like, was there a joke? Like, what are we? There were times in this pilot where there were jokes and they just weren't funny, and then there were other times where the studio audience laughed, and I was just curious as to why. Like, just I don't get it, and it's a shame because I like these actors. What did you think of Matthew Perry and Thomas Lennon as our Felix and Oscar?
I love both of them independently. Like, both of their work outside of this project is fantastic. Like, I mean, I'm, a 20-something. Of course, I love Friends, and I was really excited to see Matthew Perry be back on a network situational comedy. But that's the thing, is like, I don't like them as these characters. I don't like the way that the show's written. So it's like, it doesn't really matter that they're here. Like, it's not working. You could literally put anyone else in the role. It would still not work.
Right. The writing and the way I'm sure they're being told to play the characters and the way they choose to play them is just very down the middle. Felix, Oscar's Oscar. There's really nothing. There's no twist. The show is called The Odd Couple, and they are playing literally the characters from the story that we all know, and which is just like, I don't know. Like, if you're gonna do that, I feel like you have to bring something to the table. Because it's such a concept that we all know, and I guess to your point that it's a great concept for a show, it absolutely is, and it's also a concept that I feel like is behind almost every CBS sitcom right now. Like, I feel like every CBS sitcom is The Odd Couple. It's just not called The Odd Couple. You know, like you think about Big Bang Theory. You know, you just go down the list. It's like, isn't every CBS show mismatched people living together? Like, isn't that what Two Broke Girls is? Like, isn't this everything on CBS?
Exactly. I also just feel like it's harder because obviously this play was written it was playing in like 1965, and then the concept itself at that point was very new because like we're seeing two men not only just being polar opposites, but just two men who are living together. And that was something that you didn't typically see at that time. But it's like at this point, it's like you have two male roommates. Okay.
Yeah.
We've seen it
what
before.
Else?
Like, what else? And then it's like, oh, one is very, a neat freak and he's very like OCD, and one is a complete slob. What are they going to do? And they don't do anything. Like, that's it. Like, that's where the comedy ended. And I'm like, but like you said before, it's like we've seen it before. Like, what are we doing that's new and original? And like everyone kept calling it a modern remake in all of the interviews, and I'm like, there's really nothing. It's just a remake. There's nothing really modern about it.
I mean, it's set in the present day, so in the literal sense, it's modern. But in the comedic sensibility sense, it's the same as it's ever been. And I feel like the show is testing, is basically CBS testing its viewers' taste and sort of comedic intelligence. Because, again, every sitcom on CBS is The Odd Couple. And, like, they normally have to figure out a way to dress it up. Like, oh, we'll make them women this time, or we'll make them, we'll make them, one of them's gay and one of them's not. Like, we'll go down the list and, change little things. But they're all The Odd Couple, and I feel like every joke told in a sitcom on CBS is of the variety of, hey, you're different than me, ha ha ha. Like, that's every CBS.
That's literally it.
So this is like CBS doing absolutely no work at all. Like, it's like, hey, can we get away with this if we just don't do anything? if we forego the whole dressing it up thing. Like, isn't this 2.5 Men, by the way? The Charlie Sheen and the what's the other guy's name? The famous Charlie Sheen's the star of John Cryer. The John Cryer, Charlie Sheen. Like, isn't that the relationship? Like, those two are polar opposites. Like, again, this is every show on CBS is The Odd Couple, just in different dress up. And The Odd Couple here is just not even bothering to dress up. Like, we're just gonna play it straight down the middle and see if our audience still watches it. And you know what? People did watch it last night. It did a 3.1 rating, which makes it one of the highest rated comedies of the year. So I guess CBS was right.
I also wonder, because I mean, it's also coming right after The Big Bang Theory.
Yes.
So I'm wondering how much of that is just because it was what's on next, or how many people like wanted to view it independently because of like the actors. Because I mean, everyone loves Matthew Perry. It had like Yvette Nicole Brown from Community. Like, it had a really good cast. So I'm just wondering how much of the audience was drawn in by the show's specific time slot next to one of the biggest shows on right now, or whether it was like just people wanting to see it.
No, I think that's the key point to bring up. That, I mean, you could not have a better lead-in than The Big Bang Theory, a show that's doing over a 4.0 rating consistently every week and bringing in like 15 million viewers. So when you factor in that Big Bang Theory is, again, a show with the same premise, is just dressed up in nerd clothing.
Basically, yes.
Yeah, and all the stuff you said, like Matthew Perry and all that, like, I can totally see the Big Bang Theory audience staying to watch this pilot. How this show does in the next 3 or 4 weeks is going to be what really tests it. Because, honestly, like, this pilot just, it did nothing. Like, it just didn't, it's not, it feels so antiquated, and that's not just because it was a remake of something old. It's just, everything about this feels like it's set in the past, even though the show itself is set in the present.
Which is really interesting. I actually pulled a quote that Gary Marshall had said. I think it was an actual interview with Matthew Perry, but he had referenced something that Gary Marshall had said, which was one of the executive producers from the original series.
Yes.
He had said another main difference is that today's Odd Couple can embrace their bromance, a concept that Marshall said was frowned upon by network execs in the 70s. The network was concerned that we were being too gay. Marshall revealed that his time as executive producer on the original series, they kept saying, put more girls in. I would make the guys gush and kiss just to make them crazy. Ours is a more modern show. But when I look at this quote, I'm like, isn't that exactly what was happening last night?
Right.
Like, nothing changed.
The show Gary Marshall is describing sounds interesting. That is not the show that we watched.
No.
No, maybe, in fairness, maybe, the pilot, this is the pilot, obviously, they're setting up the parameters. Maybe as the show gets its sea legs, we're going to get into that. But, we're just judging by the pilot, which just felt like The Odd Couple, Yeah. I mean, there was a joke about, at one point they joked about Felix being gay, about Thomas Lennon being gay, and they said, "Oh, I thought he was too," ha. But it's like, I don't know. Is that a joke? Like, that's one of those lines where it's like, yeah, okay.
It's 2015, guys. Let's throw in a gay joke. Let's do that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I can see it. Like if the idea behind the show is to have the relationship be warmer, then okay, I'm interested in that. I like warm comedy, but then why does the show exist? Like, this is a show based on the conflict between two mismatched roommates. Like, if they're no longer bickering, then I'm really struggling with why this show exists. I don't know. It's just weird to me. I don't know. I don't know why anyone would watch this show. That's my main takeaway.
Basically where I'm at. Because again, I watched it and I had as many reservations going into the show as I did basically coming back out after having watched it. And I'm like, all of the points that I had been trying to make like prior to watching it, I'm like, it was all validated by watching. I just kind of had the feeling that like it wouldn't really be an original remake. It would just be The Odd Couple Part 2.
Called The Odd Couple. Yeah. But it's like, why? I mean, there's a lot of TV on right now. This isn't the 70s where there were like 10 sitcoms or whatever, or where you only had the major networks and really nothing else going on. Like, there's cable, there's great drama now, there are hundreds of original offerings. It's like, why would anyone spend their time watching this show? Like, what is this bringing to the conversation? And maybe that's not why some people watch TV, but that's why I watch TV, for shows that are bringing something. And there's just nothing. There just isn't anything. So I don't know why. I mean, I guess I know why it exists, because it did a good rating last night, and CBS wants to slip it into their lineup. But from a creative perspective, I don't know why this would exist. So, all right. I think we said all we need to say about The Odd Couple.
Basically.
Olivia, final verdict, thumbs up or thumbs down?
I'm going to give both of my thumbs a big thumbs down.
Yeah, me too. It's just not a lot to go on. Although, shout out to Wendell Pierce, a.k.a. the Bunk from The Wire, showing up. Really happy to see him. But that was my only happy moment. Literally, my only happy moment of this pilot was when Wendell Pierce showed up and I got to shout "The Bunk" from my apartment. So it gave me one happy moment, I guess. All right. Well, that concludes this episode of the ShowRatings.tv Pilot Roundtable. You can read Olivia and my writings at ShowRatings.tv and follow us on Twitter at RichardsOlivia and at Kyle Loves TV. Until next week.